How I met up with Carlo was there was a function we used to have these small little, dance parties as youngsters in various homes in Melbourne Road Flats. And my cousin said to me, "Listen, this guy Carlo is hot. This guy's varam. This guy can do a thing." I said, "Oh, let me see." And yeah, I come there with my little, not expensive clothes. The music was playing at that time. You know what I mean? Dance, trance, pump up the jam. And Carlo was tearing things there. He was doing his thing. And I came on the floor there. Nobody knew me. And obviously at that time, when the girls saw you dancing, you became a big name. And I went onto the floor, and it was a bit of an eye open for Carlo and the Melbourne Road people, and they got to know me. And eventually I became the name of Melbourne Road. Growing up, every party, and eventually me and Carlo were fighting, and later on we became friends. For a while I would visit there, and me and him would do sequences together, and we would start from young. And school holidays always come to my auntie. That will be my auntie Clara and Uncle Charlie, which are both late today. And they would always say, "Where's my child? Come and dance, come and dance." So whenever there was a dance, whenever there was music playing, I had to entertain the big people as well as the youngsters. Eventually, over the time, Carlo came to Cape Town, and whilst he was in Cape Town, he learned better moves. In fact, Cape Town was more predominantly breakdance, and Carlo knew all the breakdance moves. I mean, windmills, taking about head spins, and Carlo returned back to Durban. And when I eventually met up with Carlo again, we both entered into a competition on the beachfront. And that time on the beachfront, they had all these various functions there, where dance competitions, you would win prizes. And me and Carlo, we developed a sequence, and Carlo eventually surprised me on that day. I must tell you, Carlo, I've never seen somebody do so much of windmills and headstands and backflips, and I was still a man, hustling, doing all the moves in the air. But I must tell you, we won the competition, and we got a few prizes that day. And eventually, me and Carlo became very good friends. Going back to Mariannridge, amongst our flats, we always had a group of guys always walking around with the old tapes, with the cassette players, and they would put cardboard down on the square, on the big square between 204 and flat 1 and 202, and we would watch the guys dancing. At that time, we had the Houston brothers, or the Houston brothers, as you would say, and they entertained us. And eventually, from them, they were known as Crush Groove. At that time, they were developing and getting youngsters in. So I said, okay, fine, let me go in and become one of their juniors and follow their traits. And we always wanted to become like them, because dancing was a big thing that time. If you look at the movies like You Got Served and all these movies that came out, we used to live these things. These were exciting times. We looked forward for practices and dancing. Eventually, with time, I slowly but surely swifted away from Crush Groove, and I went solo, because I thought solo was obviously the best way to do things and to get my name known. And eventually, through the family and through meeting friends and through school, I eventually met up with a guy by the name of Bradley Lamaletti. Me and Bradley Lamaletti, and I can't remember now when it was, but we also started a dance group, the two of us. And we entered a few competitions. We also entered a few variety shows, and we performed. And eventually, Lamaletti decided to go on to gangsterism, and I couldn't keep up, and eventually left him. With time, I continued, and later I met up with two guys, and we call ourselves. Can't remember now. What was the name of us? It was Bradley Kutsi and Theo Viljoen. Theo Viljoen was also struggling, shame, but Bradley also. I don't know if it's part of the interview, but I'm just mentioning how it was. And we started a group, and we were dancing. I think we were called Third Base. Yeah, Third Base. It's coming now. It was Third Base. And Third Base was we danced for a couple of good songs, but eventually with Third Base we didn't go far. They were living in more so-called affluent area where we came from, the flats, and it'll always be distant to travel and walk all the way to the new section. And eventually they went on their own, and I met up with two wonderful guys that today, holds good memories. Craigkariem and Denzel Heslop. We came from different backgrounds, we came from different lifestyles, but we were still in the same area called Mariannridge. They were from the ghettos, which is called the ghettos, and I was from F section. It's a long story, but I think our meeting was, you can't get it better than the way we met, and how we just united, and the bond that we developed. And Craig on the one end, he was a bit straightforward but also stubborn. Denzel was somehow not too sure whether he got the move right, and Denzel came from also hardship in his life also. Denzel, with his mother and his sisters, and myself coming from F section. I met up with this wonderful a great influence in our life, a man that had talent, a man that had soul, that took us in his arm, and he grabbed us and he nurtured us and taught us a lot of things. Sean Lamaletti. Sean Lamaletti was a phenomenal man, that made us and created us. And the lifestyle, I mean, as young boys growing up, and we still in our teens, I think we're still I was eating maybe more or less, I think it was Standard 9, as a couple of years back, Standard 9, and, we all met, and Sean supported us. He took us took us in as family, and he nurtured us and coached us, as a father. Sean was a very talented man, and loved music. I think music is something that just doesn't, for us, it's difficult to speak it. It's something that drives your soul. It's deep. It's when we hear a beat, it's not just hearing a beat. It's about feeling it. It's about living it. It's about stretching out from your soul. And when you hear a beat, it's about understanding it, and what the music is actually telling you. It's deep. And I think I must say we bonded very much. Although Craig and Denzel, because they were, from the ghettos, they were mostly together all the time, But I think us meeting, we just somehow had this perfect match, this perfect setting, where we all carried different attributes, and we formed this group called Big Fun. And wow, it's like inner city, we're having big fun, but it's a vinyl, it's an LP, it's a song that will always remain in our hearts. We were looking for a name. What should we name ourselves? Everybody had all these fancy names, and what should we do? And Sean was also trying his best to also add in there, and his wife also, And eventually we sat down and listening to the music, we said, okay, name ourselves Big Fun. And one thing about Sean, he brought us into music. We learned a lot about music. Sean wasn't just a DJ or somebody that wanted to role play somebody else, because those days, we always heard about DJ Cass and this DJ and that, but Sean was unique. Sean was somebody that you could tell how the rhythm, how the beat, how it actually lives within you. You could just see the expression and the way we would go on. And eventually, whilst he said, listen, I'll support you guys, I'll help you financially, I'll set you up, but do me a favor, stay away from gangsterism. Stay away from thug life, get away from that. And we somehow bonded, and we took on to Sean. And eventually we spent almost every day there, which, became a bit of concern, because every time, are we going to Sean? Are you going to Sean? Are you going to Sean? Although we had our own lives growing up, but we still felt that need to be there. And with that, we learned different kinds of music, hip hop, house, R&B, even slow jams. I mean, Sean played slow jams that, today we can thank him, God bless his soul, for the kind of music and somehow not just his way of doing is not forcing us into things. His way of things was making us understand and telling us a story to understand why this music is like that, or the rhythm and the beat is like that. And eventually, he taught us how to mix. We would do a couple of sessions on a Friday or in a week, and opportunity to use his turntables. That time you didn't have the special turntables. We had, turntables that we could jepo and make a hole to try and make the cueing go faster and slower. And also he had a Technics tape where you could also set the to get the pace or the beat of it faster. Sean had some weird things, but a very talented man, and we loved music, and we let it sound. I mean, every single weekend, we were there, and we practiced to become DJs whilst we were also dancing. But the amazing thing about Big Fun was our first huge hit as a group dancing together. And at that time we had Terence with breakdance, we had the Crush City, which was the well-known group. There was various other groups in Mariannridge that were there, and we knew that everyone in Wentworth and Newlands, they knew Crush City, because Crush City was a name at that time, and we were coming up. And the likes of, I look today, the way kids want to, all the dances we did, they come and giving it different names and whatever, we love these things, But I must say, as Big Fun, the first night, the first variety show, the concert where we basically surprised the entire community of Mariannridge. I think it was a night to remember. I will never forget it, where even the groups that were there were shocked. They were surprised. Who is Big Fun? And we danced just before Crush City came on. Yes, that, I don't know, the setting was so perfect. It was so awesome, man. You could never get such a setting like that. We danced just before. And then let me make it clear to you. Let me tell you, I'm telling you, you had to be there to know. You had to experience the feeling, the goosebumps, the nerves. And we came out with this outfit, we made this, this outfit was a hit. We had a American setting where Sean said, listen, we're going to make this clothing for you. This is the kind of clothing you're going to go. And you must already have everything, the full clothing. No, man, don't worry. Sean said, go to Full House. It was amazing. Between me and Denzel and Craig, who's going to be in the middle and all these things. But eventually we all had a different style of dancing, Dancing, you're either born a dancer. You're not. We can't make you a dancer. We can't. I watch movies also, and I watch different things, and I see people. If it's not in your blood, not in your genes, you're gonna try and do a style, or try and pop, or try and do a break move, or or jack. But you can't jack because you gotta learn because somebody's teaching you this thing, and if it's not in your blood, it's difficult, I think for me, I've been blessed with this gift that as soon as a beat comes, it's we make our own moves. We created our own moves. We never had to watch things, where when you look at Crush City at that time, they used to watch Paul Abdul or Janet Jackson, or different kinds of groups out there dancing, and then they'll try and imitate or copy it. And I would see, but we would come on our own things. Let's do this, let's do that, let's create this. There was a song that we danced for. I think it's a Rocky. Go for it. Yeah. Yo. God be the glory. Yay! I'm telling you that was I sometimes when I listen to that thing, I just want to cry, because I'm telling you, we surprised and we were awesome and outstanding. From sequence to performance to looks to presentation and our timing and the way I tell you, those days, when the ladies screamed louder for you, we knew, because you were either a soccer player or you were either a rugby player. Guys in Mariannridge is either, it's not much, you either, but we were performers, and we were well known, So on that day for the variety show, it so happened that Crush City danced after us, but they were so shocked and so stunned. They were so surprised that they were shaking. They were nervous. It looked like they were unprepared you could see their faces, and they were shaking their heads at the back there on the stage. I could see, who's these guys? And I was in Durban, we speak, who's these lighties? No, man, I know Greg's and so and so and so, but who's these guys? And Max was good. Give him his due, he was good. Macford Peters was good in Bansula. But I'm telling you, once your legs start moving, you just can't control yourself. We're natural, you know what I mean? And I tell you, they were scared to dance. In fact, they performed the worst ever. The people actually booed them. The worst ever. And as time went, we started performing, went everywhere. We went to I think Craig had family or connection through Vantigos, and we were dancing everywhere. I mean, we went to Vantigos, the disco that time, free also. People knew us, you know what I mean? We never paid. When you go to Vantigos, the disco, the matinees, we were going to all the matinees, and people knew us. But I was determined. I suppose my way of seeing things, and Craig was always a person. As one thing with Craig, he would tell you what he wants to say. Craig never ever amongst us. If Denzel said something about me, he would come and say, "What did you say now? What did you say?" Yes, Greg's now. Tell him now. But one thing about, and Mobs on the one hand, we all had different things. We all had different ways of doing things. But one thing I want to say to you is that for me, I made it certain. I ensured. I said that, listen, there's Wentworth, Newlands, and all these guys everywhere. They're going to get to know us. They need to know. We would use all these languages, we don't Baiza, When it came to the numbers I'm talking about the Rock the House, I'm talking about, you name it, bass line, everything. All these guys getting onto the dance floor. As you look at You Got Served, the movies that we watch, we do the same thing. There was big circles. I never, ever, ever allowed myself not to be in that circle. As soon as a song came on, I rushed to that circle. And the people knew. When the guys were surprised. Who's this? Oh, even the guys from Wentworth, the Quakes in the man. Who's these O's? You know what I mean? We took them on. I went to go watch how they would dance and perform in Xanadu. We'd watch them and all. I watched all how they would do their things. But when we got on the floor, these guys knew. No, these O's, these guys. No, these O's. These O's are Varam. And one thing, I took them on. I was scared of no one. I don't care how you moved, what you did. I took you on. Whether it was a song or a music, whatever come on, even if I would burn my own shadow, as Craig would say, but I'll make certain that these guys will know. And eventually, as time gone, we went to Newlands East, we danced, and we performed everywhere. And one thing I can tell you, we made a name for ourselves. Coming from Mariannridge, wasn't a big name area, because we were far from Durban. Our first portal was Pinetown. So we would live in Pinetown, everything Pinetown or Mariannhill, Pinetown or Mlazi, or we would only in the lands. That's the only areas we would in. We look like somehow like guys from a farm, And to travel to Durban would be, it's a long distance, We will follow the taxis. We would just do this with a sign to say, well, going to the beach, and we'll know. But those taxis never ever went to the workshop. For us, when we get to the workshop, we were excited, to get out. And it took us a long way to drive out of Mariannridge, doesn't no taxi to get to the workshop. But when we got to the workshop, we made it count, and we'd go to shunters and prepare ourselves there, or maybe there in a jawl downstairs, prepare ourselves, make ourselves nice and nice. You'll see a couple of photos where we would also somehow pretend that we're drinking Coke, but we prepared ourselves nice. We dashed the Coke with a bit of brandy and prepared ourselves. But one thing I can say, we made a name for the Newlands guys as well as Wentworth. And if you look at Durban holistically compared to Cape Town, where I am today, Durban, the coloureds are not even a drop in the ocean. They are the minority of the minority. And then the huge population in terms of race would be the Africans as well as the Indians. So Wentworth, Sydenham, Newlands, Greenwood Park, as well as a bit of Sydenham Heights and the likes of Melbourne Road. Those were the predominantly kinds of the coloured areas. A couple of here in town, in Brea, here and there, a couple of coloured people living. You know what I mean? In town by the Durban harbour. So we coming out of Mariannridge, we're basically like farmers, But one thing we made our name count. And Big Fun became a very, very big name, I must say. And because we became so strong, eventually, Crush City came to us and said, you know what, let's find a way that in order for us to take on the likes of all these big groups, big name groups in Wentwood and Newlands. We weren't really worried about Newlands. Newlands had a couple of guys, I must say, it's a pity I can't remember the names, but when I used to watch them, I was like, hey, these guys are varam, these guys are good. But we decided we're going to be a force, a strong force, and let's combine, let's come together and make a strong, dancing group that we can take on anybody. And let's mix all kinds of genre, let's mix all kinds of dancing, popping, bansula, let's add everything in there, you know what I mean? And a bit of here and there, jazz in there, you know what I mean? We'd add it in, and we came together, which wasn't the agreement of Sean at that time, because Sean, and his wife Melanie didn't really like it, because we were the known, they're only joining with you now because you guys are good and all. But we saw the concept of Milton and Dodo and Darren Fontaine at that time. We saw the what they want to do, and it was something good, And we performed together as a group, and I'll tell you, we really did some. We took a couple of younger guys in, created our own outfits again, and we performed and went on. With time, eventually, some of us left off, because many of the dancers those years, there were some good guys that were dancing in mariannridge. You either became a dancer in the beginning and eventually become a gangster. And if you still be a gangster for a while, you either end up in prison, or if not prison, you either end up dead.